everyone. Welcome to another book talk with Livingston Parish Library. My name is Danielle, the branch manager at the Watson branch. Today I'm very excited to bring you another adult book talk. Typically we've been doing a lot of teen and middle grade readers, but now we're starting to incorporate more book talks for adults. This week I want to talk about some of the books that have come out this year that people cannot stop talking about. Seriously, they've been out for a little while. These books, you've probably seen them, Walmart, Target, Barnes & Noble, the library, but people cannot stop talking about them, cannot stop recommending them, and cannot stop putting them on all of the best books of whatever lists. So these are the ones that you should be reading based on what everyone else says. And I'm not talking about books from mega authors like James Patterson, these mega series that, they come out often and everybody loves them and reads them. I'm not talking about those kind of books. I'm talking about generally standalone books from relatively big authors, but the ones that I see everywhere, that are on every list and every bookshelf and are along with those mega series. Okay, so the first book I want to talk about today came out last year, the end of last year, and it was the 2020 Goodreads Choice winner for fiction, which is a pretty big deal. It's essentially about the choices that go into a well-lived life. So this is called The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. Somewhere between life and death, there is a library. The shelves stretch on forever, and there is an infinite number of books on those shelves. And each book provides a chance to almost live a different life. Our main character finds herself in the Midnight Library, and she comes to face with countless books that can essentially change the trajectory of her life. Tons of different possibilities out there. And, as she travels through the Midnight Library, she, is gonna have to decide what is truly fulfilling in life and what makes a life really worth living in the first place. This book has bits of magic and fantasy, and it's very whimsical, and there's some like quantum physics and deeper topics, and it really explores the idea of regrets and what it means to each individual person, what a good life is. Kind of also explores, is the grass really greener on the other side? This next book is another one that is everywhere. People cannot stop talking about it. I see it on literally every list. I see it on every bookshelf. But that's probably to say something because it seems like a very, very interesting book. So this is by a very popular author, V.E. Schwab. It is called The Invisible Life of Addie Larue. In France in 1714, in a moment of intense desperation, our main character makes a Faustian-like bargain to live forever. However, she ends up cursed to live forever, but to be forgotten by everyone she meets. And thus begins the extraordinary life of Addie Larue that spans continents and centuries across history and art as she tries to make her mark in a world that has forgotten her. Until everything changes 300 years later when she stumbles into a bookstore and meets a man that remembers her name. This story has such a unique premise, and really interesting that Addie, over her, long life and her curse that she's dealing with, she's really trying to make her mark on the world, influence it, or leave some type of clue that she is there so that people remember her. And the book really deals with consequences of our actions, how everyone just kind of wants to be remembered for something or by someone. So it's a very interesting book. People are obsessed with it, and you should read it because everyone else says so. Okay, so this next book is another book that I've seen everywhere. I mean, it's all over the library, so if you've come into one of the branches, you've probably seen it. And it's by an author that is everywhere. You've probably seen one of her other books or have heard her name. This is called The Four Winds by Kristin. The setting is Texas, 1934. There's millions who are out of work, and drought has essentially broken the Great Plains. Farmers are struggling, fighting to keep their crops, their land, their livelihoods. Water is drying up, and dust is threatening to bury everyone. Yes, we are in one of the darkest periods of the Great Depression, the Dust Bowl. It has arrived with a vengeance. During this uncertain and frankly dangerous time, our main character, Elsa Martinelli, like so many of her neighbors and so many people during that time, are struggling with making an agonizing choice. Do they stay and fight for the land that they know and love so much, or do they go west to California to try to find a better life? This novel deals with a lot of themes of hope and courage, the American dream. There's a lot of defining, beautiful themes in it. But ultimately, this is a survival story all set in that Dust Bowl era, so you can imagine what you're going to get into with this book. But if you really enjoy historical fiction, survival stories, or just really powerful novels that kind of hit you in the gut and make you stop and think and feel, this is definitely the book for you. Okay, so the last book I have for you today is a little bit darker, another historical, kind of fantastical alternate history, and it's, as all of these other books have been, everywhere. I cannot stop seeing this book. I was looking up something recently and bam, the book was there, so I'm like, I have to add this and let the people know because it's everywhere. This is called The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. Setting is 1791 London, in the back, dark, dingy alleyways where nothing but nefarious things happen. There is a lost, hidden apothecary where a female apothecary distributes poisons to liberate women of the men that have wronged them. So in this apothecary, there are 2 rules. Rule number 1, no poison must ever be used to harm another woman. And rule number 2, the murderer and her victim must be named in the apothecary's registry. Our main character, Nella, who used to be a respected healer, now uses her abilities for a darker purpose. She runs the apothecary. Her newest patron turns out to be a precocious 12-year-old named Eliza. They form this friendship that unleashes a string of events that essentially jeopardizes Nella's world and threatens to expose the many women that have written their names in the registry. Present-day London aspiring historian Caroline spends her 10th wedding anniversary alone and reeling from the discovery of her husband's infidelity. But when she finds a vial near the River Thames, she can't resist investigating, and she soon realizes that she has a connection to the apothecary murders. The closer that she gets to uncovering the truth and the deeper she searches, her life will collide with Nella's and Eliza's in a stunning twist of fate. This one's definitely a little darker. There's a little bit of murder mystery. I mean, although we kind of know who the murderers are at this point. But you can see how this could be a very fun book and why so many people are talking about it. Okay, so that's it for the books that I have for you today. All of these books were ones that are everywhere, on every list, on every shelf. Everyone's talking about them, and I just wanted you to know about them in case you hadn't heard yet. If you have any other books that everyone's talking about that I didn't mention today, you can put them in the comments to let everyone know. We can get talking about all of the good books that people should be reading. And stay tuned because we will have more book talks in the future for adult readers, all about different subject matter, different new books coming out, and other things that other people say you should be reading. And until next time, happy reading.